Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode of the Saturday Morning Replay. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. And today's the last Saturday of the month, so it also kicks off our very first 80s week. And this week we're going to continue with our Christmas theme and take a look back at all the toys that was on every 80s kid's wish list. Last week we covered the 90s toys, so make sure to check that out if you didn't get a chance. Let's go ahead and take a look at the very first toy on our list. Number 1, Lite-Brite. Coming out in the late 60s, the Lite-Brite was still going strong in the 80s. Kids were able to trace out images of their favorite character to create their own. Think of the Lite-Brite as one part painting and one part connect the dots. Black sheets of paper were placed over the screen and colored pegs were inserted to create an image. The light inside the housing of the Lite-Brite illuminated the image and brought it to life. And just in case you lost some of your pegs, and of course you would, replacement packs were sold as well as books of licensed characters for your Lite-Brite. Number 2, the Viewmaster. Long before we had VR headsets, there was the Viewmaster. And even though it's been around since at least the 30s, every 80s kid had one of these. The Viewmaster was a toy that allowed its wearers to see still images with a 3D effect. The toy itself was shaped like binoculars and were usually red. Whenever you inserted an image disc, you were surrounded by images of your favorite show or superhero. One of the biggest reasons for the Viewmaster's popularity for so many years was its licensing deals. Every franchise from Superman to the Cabbage Patch Kids, and it was a great marketing tool. Number 3, My Little Pony. In 1981, Hasbro released a toy called My Pretty Pony, which was a 10-inch tall plastic horse. But it wasn't until the second release of the My Pretty Pony that a baby was included, and Hasbro found that the smaller ponies were fairly popular. Starting the next year, My Little Pony was born. Each pony purchase came with points for discounted toys through a mail order program. Girls everywhere collected the ponies, and Hasbro continued to release plenty of My Little Pony toys and accessories for them to buy. The toys sold so well that 2 different pilots and eventually a series was created in 1986. Several animated specials, a film, and 4 cartoon spin-offs followed, and the My Little Pony franchise is still alive today. Number 4, Speak and Spell. The Speak and Spell was sold in the 80s as a toy, but was actually a handheld computer for kids. It had a keyboard and small screen that would display numbers and letters. The Speak and Spell was originally designed to help children with 200 commonly misspelled words and included 3 minigames when it launched. There were cartridge expansions released that included additional words and games. The minigames included spelling, memory, pattern, typing games, and more. And with the appearance in the mega hit movie E.T., the Speak and Spell was a huge hit. So much so that even home computer adaptations were made for the Commodore 64, Apple IIe, and more. Number 5, Heman and Shira toys. The Heman toys launched in the 80s with a mini-comic series telling the story of a barbarian fighting against his arch-enemy, Skeletor. From 1982 to 1988, 70 different Heman toys were released, including 12 vehicles and 6 playsets. With the success of the toys and the mini-comics, another comic series from DC was released, and the first 2 issues actually had Superman teaming up with He-Man in a fight against Skeletor. There was an animated series in 1983 that used Japanese animation that also became a huge hit. The new stories reworked the He-Man backstory a bit and revealed the identity of He-Man to be Prince Adam of Eternia, whose magical sword transformed him into He-Man. The stories introduced his sister, Princess Adora, whose magical weapon transformed her into Shira. He-Man did so well that a spin-off series and toy line was released for girls with Shira. The toys were made with soft clothing and real hair to mimic Barbie's and other girls' toys. The Shira series had a total of 22 figures and lots of clothing accessories. Number 6, Thundercat toys. When the show first aired in 1985, 80s kids were introduced to the Thundercats, an alien race of human cat creatures led by Lion-O, a muscular man-child with a magical sword that holds the Eye of Thundera. Lion-O and his friends protect the Eye of Thundera from a demon mummy named Mumra and the mutants of Plundar. Similar to He-Man, comics were released from Marvel, and it also had a show with Japanese animation. And of course, a toy line was released with the series. What made the Thundercats toys so special was that each figure had its own action feature. The Lion-O and Mumra figures had eyes that would light up when a special ring was pressed into their backs. With the popularity of the toys and show, Thundercats merchandise was everywhere. Board games, TV trays, lunchboxes, TV shirts, and more. Number 7, Transformer toys. Starting in the mid-70s, the Microman toys entered the market in Japan. The toys were different from others at the time because they were marketed as being micro-cyborgs from another planet called Micro-Earth that disguised themselves as being toys. They were so popular, in fact, that Hasbro bought the license to sell the toys in America. However, the name was changed to Transformers, and the first line in the US actually used the same molds as the Japanese toys. The Transformers, unlike the Microman toys, were actually giant robots that could transform into cars, trucks, planes, and other large items. The Transformer toys were so popular that Hasbro went on to purchase the full rights to the toys, leading to the Transformers replacing Microman entirely. The toys were followed by an American series with Japanese animation just like Heman and ThunderCats, and when the show was released, the characters of the Transformers began to take shape and kids were introduced to Optimus Prime and the Autobots and their fight against the Decepticons. By the time the Transformers movie was released in 1986, the brand had grown to an international success. Number 8. Cabbage Patch Kids. In the late 70s, an art student named Xavier Roberts found success selling his handmade dolls called Little People. Each doll included a birth certificate, and customers were able to adopt one of his Little People for only $40. Before long, the dolls caught the attention of the Coleco Company, and they purchased the rights to the dolls in 1982, changing the name to Cabbage Patch Kids. Coleco allowed the combination of heads and bodies to be determined by computers, which resulted in a large number of variations. Millions of dolls were adopted in the next year, but demand grew to the point that violence would break out in shopping centers in search for rare dolls. Throughout the 80s, over 65 million Cabbage Patch Kids were adopted. They were so popular that a parody was made by Topps Cards called the Garbage Pail Kids. Number 9. G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe came out in the 60s as 12-inch dolls, but was relaunched in the 80s as the 3 3/4-inch figures we all know. The figures were accompanied by vehicles, playsets, and an awesome backstory of the fight between the G.I. Joe team and the Cobra Command. An animated show and ongoing comic book series also debuted from Marvel. G.I. Joe pretty much became a household name overnight, and eventually had a large variety of merchandising. The toy line ran from 1982 to 1994, and had over 500 figures and over 250 vehicles and playsets. G.I. Joe was named the best-selling toy of 1985 by several magazines, tying it with the Teddy Ruxpin. We've got just one more 80s toy left on our list, and we'll get to it right after these messages.
So the boy fell asleep in the Toys R Us store, and he woke up with toys from the ceiling to the floor.
We've got the Nintendo action set, including the control deck with double game pack and Zapper light gun for just $99.99 at Toys R Us. And we have all the hottest game cartridges at great everyday low prices.
Love growing up with my Toys R Us kid. Toys R Us. You'll never outgrow us.
Number 10. The Teddy Ruxpin. When Teddy Ruxpin was released in 1985, there was nothing quite like it. Teddy was an animatronic bear whose eyes and mouth would move while reading storybooks to kids. The stories were contained on audio cassettes that were built into the back of the toy. He was released with several non-animatronic companions and had a cartoon released based on the characters. Teddy Ruxpin's popularity skyrocketed quickly, and he became the best-selling toy of 1985 and 1986. He was also dubbed the official spokesbearer for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That's everything for this week's Saturday morning replay. I want to thank everybody again for tuning in. Did all of your favorite 80s toys make the list? Anything that I missed? Leave a comment below and let me know. And if you like the show, guys, a thumbs up would be much appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe, because next week we're starting an all-new theme with January of forgotten 80s and 90s shows. Until next time, my name is Chad. Have a good one.